Happy Monday, everybody.
What's
Hey,
up, guys?
what's up? What's up? And thank you, Brian, for making time to come on. It's the middle of the week, but I had to bring you on because, first of all, we haven't spoken. We haven't been on live stream since the New York City TV shootout. And let me tell you guys, it was so fun because of Brian, the witness, right? I mean, I was laughing so hard when we were like just walking around looking for a place to drink. It was just too much. So yeah,
It was
having
a
you
blast.
there, it's the reason why I'll be back next year. It's all that matters.
Absolutely. We had a blast.
So what I wanted to do today is something new, and this is the live review of the R646. That's the 2021 TCL 6 series Google TV. For the first time, TCL has replaced its Roku with the Google TV, but that's not the only improvement. The R635 was last year's TCL 6 series. Both TVs have mini LED, and it appears they have the same number of dimming zones. Now, the question was, wait, is it just a repackaged R635, except it's been replaced with Google TV? The answer is absolutely not. And this is the part that I think a lot of people will kind of stress out about because both TVs right now cost the same on Best Buy, around 1,300. And so the question is, well, then which one do I buy? Is it as simple as Roku versus Google? Now, that's very personal. I'll tell you the reasons why I like one over the other, but it may be the wrong reason because at the very end, I want to compare the two in terms of the use case. When would you get the R635 after watching everything I've said? And when would you get the R646, right? The 2021 Google TV? But that conclusion is also dependent on viewer questions because what I tell everyone, I don't know what I don't know. And until you guys ask me a question, I don't even know if it's important to you or not. So I think it's great that I'm going to try this review, and I call it interactive review, viewer driven. It's not just a live review where I talk one way to you guys. I want you guys to ask me, hey, stop right here. FOMO, can you tell me what about this? And if I can't answer it right now, later I'm going to download this entire stream and then answer that question in the video and upload it with all the missing facts and data and stuff. But the one thing I will not answer on this video is gaming features because we know that's a dedicated video comparison itself. So if you have any gaming questions beyond the basics, right? 4K 120 VRR, the answer is yes, they support it all. No to HGIG, yes, THX game mode, and no, I don't know how to enable it because I cannot find specifically the THX game mode. However, I'm going to assume it's on default all the time because the colors look very similar to the R635. But that's no more game talk, right? So HDMI 2.1, 4K 120, HDR support. Yes on the R646, no on the R635. Okay, with that out of the way, before I jump in, Brian, you have anything to add?
I want to definitely discuss that, the TCL, Hisense, and these brands are definitely word of mouth. So to have someone like you review them thoroughly is super important because even me, who is more in store, I had the TCL 635. I did like some parts of it, but there are things about it that I would have discovered had I seen it even in store and had my hands on the remote. So it's definitely a leap of faith, which is why I think the format that you're trying here is super important because, as we mentioned, written reviews are basically stories and you need to have somebody say, hey, what is this and how is this work? So I'm excited for it.
I am too. And with that segue, thank you, Bill Hubbard, for this comment. I don't think there is much of a difference between the two R6s, the two TCL 6 series, outside of maybe clarity and gaming features, is there? And that's why we're here today. There is definitely a difference. I will dive into those differences that are important to you. I mean, there might be other differences that's important to nobody, but I think these are very relevant to you depending on your use case. And before we jump in, a big thank you to our good friend TechMed Rainer Richter. I hope all is well. Thank you for that super sticker. And if you're still in Germany, a big hello to you. He does
Yeah,
have that amazing QN900A. Let us know when you
nice.
finally sell it, right?
Yeah.
So let's jump right in. And everyone, if you have any questions, I miss it. Keep on asking. Obviously, if it's a super chat, I'll see it right away. Not because I need the super chat, but sometimes it just pops up. That's the way YouTube does it. Okay, let's get into it. All right. So today we're going to cover a few things. Is it better than the TCL 6 Series R635 Roku TV? The answer is yes. and we're going to go into what I normally go into, sample footages, comparisons, but just to summarize, the local dimming algorithm and processing is definitely better. I wish they transferred it over to the R635. So it's not just a software update. I think there's some hardware improvements. It is definitely brighter in HDR, and I'll show you how. And this is one that for sure is a hardware. It's better viewing angle. I'll also demonstrate that, but it's not that much better, but it is a little bit better. Now the weaknesses. So this is something that I'm going to dive deep into. The black crush risk on the new 6 Series R646. I say risk because it can be fixed to be better than the R635, but you have to know the settings. So that's what we'll talk about at the very end is these are the settings that finally I found to fix the black crush. And it comes down to 2 or 3 specific settings that I'll go over with you guys. And you guys can play with it because panel lottery being what it is, it may not be exactly, but at least you'll have the right toggles, right? And so at the end, the use case, when should one get the R646 and when should you get the R635? And a surprise, so hold on. Right after the use case, we're going to have an amazing announcement for October that I think you guys are going to love. So hold on tight until the end because prizes and more will happen. I think October and Black Friday is going to be exciting for all of us. All right. We'll start with a softball, right? This is the Spears and Munsell Starfield. We're all very familiar. The bottom TV is the Roku TV R635, and the top is the R646. As you can see already, the R646 does an amazing job of subtitles. Now, I have increased the exposure so that it appears that the R646 has a little bit of blooming. In reality, there is no blooming on this subtitle, which is the metadata off of my splitter, right? But the bottom, you can see very noticeable blooming, and that's what I actually see in real life. So let's get this started here. Boom. Now, if you are watching these two TVs, and I have them one on top of the other, what you're going to notice is the R635 has lifted blacks. That's how it prevents the stars from disappearing. The R646 prefers to crush the stars and have perfect blacks. This is very difficult to fix. So if all you do is watch Starfield, I would get the R635 if you need all the stars. But if you're willing to lose a few stars and get better blacks, then it's the R646. But the local dimming algorithm still needs help. I see visible flashing of these stars when they are moving too fast. But again, this is a pattern. What are your thoughts on these patterns, Brian? I mean, does it reflect what you see when you're watching, or it's just a pattern? It's not really important. You don't even use it to determine.
Well, what's fascinating is using them a few years ago, LEDs actually used to win them because OLEDs used to crush them. So I know now it's become commonplace that OLEDs are better because of their light control. But I do think there is merit to it, as a lot of our content is in that near black and coming out of near black. But I think that, to your point, having more stars with raised blacks is a detriment. So I rather, in my opinion, especially with an LED, crush them a little bit and have not that sparkling in the specular highlights.
All right. And that's a perfect segue to real content.
We rehearsed this.
I know. I'm like, wait, what?
I have my
I
script
love it, dude. All right. Let's go to, this is the movie Pitch Black, the remastered version in Dolby Vision. And let me tell you guys first, the reason why I put Dolby Vision here is this. Both the R646 and R635 look almost identical with Dolby Vision content, almost indistinguishable. The colors are the same. I mean, it's as if they were built for Dolby Vision. Now, the differences come when you bring it into HDR10. The R646 is completely different than the R635, and it's mostly because, as a reminder, I did have the R635 Roku TV calibrated, whereas the Google TV R646 out of the box straight from Best Buy. I did the best I could with just basic settings so that you guys can see the benefits of calibration and whether it's important to you. Because if you can live with the best settings you can get without calibration, hey, that's fine. But you're going to see the differences in skin tone when it's not at D65 white point, which is the standard that creators use. So let's check out what happens in real content, Pitch Black. Okay. Now, you see crushed blacks on top, that green arrow? all those stars are gone, but there's lifted blacks and blooming, and this is being exaggerated. I had to raise the ISO a little bit so you guys can see the difference. It is not that bad, but in real life, yes, it is lifted. But you see the benefit right there. There's almost no blooming, some blooming on the R646, less, but a lot more on the R635. You can't have everything, guys, right? If you want all your stars, this is what you're dealing with on the bottom. And this one is the worst, right? So this is from pitch. He's coming out, and you're like, what? Everything is glowing on the R635. In this scene, he looks like he's radioactive, right? And you see the area there that's glowing. In the R646, it's not, but your blacks will be slightly crushed. But see, it's a little bit brighter here. The highlights are very similar. So it's not a matter of which is a brighter TV in this movie. It's rather the tone mapping and the local dimming preferences, right? So I'm going to play it one more time so you guys can see all the stars are here. When I saw this, wow, this is definitely taste. I could not get this to look like this, because if I did, this whole thing will be lifted and it would look worse than the R635. So here's where you have to choose your poison. Perfect black bars or near perfect black bars, but slightly crushed, but then you don't have this blooming. And yes, the blooming is almost this bad. I kind of raised it a little bit, but not that much. And I did use my special luminance analyzer so you guys could see where the heat map is, right? It's not great. But again, if you don't watch this kind of movie and you have full field TV watching, you're not going to notice the difference. I had to pull out pitch black to make it this obvious. But and pitch black is a very bright movie, right? It was remastered for Dolby Vision, and this isn't Dolby Vision, by the way. So a lot of you might say, wait a minute, maybe the Dolby Vision would be better. No, Dolby Vision is not better. So what are your thoughts on this, Brian? As a purchaser consumer, which would you choose? Because they're priced the same.
Well, definitely having the R635 myself, I did not have anywhere near as bad blooming as what was reported. Mine was very clean. I had very little blooming outside of the subtitles, which is what the algorithm just couldn't keep up with subtitles because the way it stepped. But blooming wasn't really an issue for me, so I'm surprised to see how much this one is. And other reviewers really reported blooming being a real problem, and I was kind of surprised because half my community that has it had no issue with it. So I do wonder if it's panel to panel variance. Yours is calibrated, but for me, if I had blooming to that magnitude, I'd return it.
And the thing is, you don't even see this until maybe it's 60 days later. It's too late. You put in pitch black. What the heck? Yeah. So I recommend everyone that if you do watch movies like Pitch Black, you need to have this in your library because this scene is in the first 10 minutes. So it's easy to find, right?
Well, and go ahead. When you get your panels, everyone wants to run slides. Don't run slides. My thing is run content. Work it hard. Put your challenging movies in, your black bars. Black bars will be more elevated with HDR enabled. SDR is a good way to tell if you actually have a defective panel because in SDR you should have black bars for the most part. But I would just watch content as much as you can, the movie like Pitch Black. But running these slides and making yourself crazy is why there's an issue with a lot of returns. So, but with the way the X35 is here, I wouldn't keep it.
And unless you're watching Pitch Black remastered Dolby Vision, where the blacks are really black and the brights are really bright because it's HDR remastered, you wouldn't have noticed this. But before we go on, Brian, you have a couple of fans with questions specific to you. Here we have Paso Robles Bruce. Brian, regarding the ambient light in Costco video, will a 77-inch 80J be good on a Saturday afternoon watching a football game or a movie?
Oh, it's a great question. I mean, I did watch a ton of football the other day, and it was absolutely fine. It does reflect light as any OLED does, but because light reflection on OLEDs is a detriment when things are black. When there's a lot of color on the screen, the panel is plenty bright enough for it. I watched football all day long, and it was absolutely phenomenal. No ABL, by the way. I didn't see any ABL in 10 hours of football. So we got to stop with this ABL nonsense that is making people say,
nonsense.
Well, I got a ton of people leaving the A80 to run to an LG because they hear some reports about this erratic ABL, which I don't see, and I watch it every day. So.
Right. And another question for you is this right here. Warranty 3-year extended. Did you hear anything about this Costco deal if you're familiar?
No, Costco has that. They have a 90 days flat, no questions asked. They'll honor a year, full year, with some questions asked. But you can do that extra. I'm losing the name of the Square Trade,
Yes.
which is hit or miss. It's a lot like Assurian. Doesn't cover burn-in, so I don't know about them offering any extra warranty on top of that. I do think you might get the Sony year on top of it, so that might give you 2 years. But Costco, because you're a member, they'll take care of you.
And lastly, since you are so closely connected with electronics, and this is a inside joke between the two of us, I was telling Brian, you know, Brian, when I went on Google and I was looking for Value Electronics shootout judges, your videos keep on popping up, and it didn't even answer my question.
Yeah, people think I work there. Like, what time do you go in tomorrow? I'm like,
right. So apparently you're the expert of Value Electronics. If anyone types in Value Electronics TV, like your name is right up there with spare change.
Yeah,
I love it.
we're
So
very
what do you think about this calibration A80J? You have the A80J.
Hmm?
Is it worth calibrating by Value Electronics?
I mean, it depends. To me, the best part about the calibration aspect of Value Electronics is really the QC, more than the calibration. The calibration is specific. It will get you very accurate. The Sonys are very accurate out of the box, especially the Master Series. There is some tinkering if you want the image to look as accurate as possible. But to me, the money paso is really more of the QC. My panels aren't QC'd by them because I don't want to trouble them. You'll wait a little bit longer, but at least you'll get a panel, no dead pixels,
Right.
I've been part of the QC process. It takes a long time because they do check for banding, which is very erratic on these OLEDs. They're all from LG, so we have banding on all of them. But to have them go through that, look for the Venetian blind effect, that's what they would do. To me, that is in tandem with the calibration. It's important.
And thank you, Amanda, gamer.
Amanda,
girl.
what up, girl?
Who knew she was a gamer, right? So Amanda, thank you for that. She has confirmed Costco has insurance included with. Is there feedback somewhere? Weird. Thank you for including. Thank you, Costco, for including insurance right now until October 10. Great information. Okay, let's jump into.
Amanda, I need your gamer tag so we can play. Love Amanda.
All right, let's get to the next bit of performance measurements. And if you guys have any issues with the audio, because I'm getting a little bit of feedback on my side, is there a feedback issue, guys? Just making sure. Yeah, there's feedback. Okay, let me try. Try to put yourself on mute, Brian. Oh, you know what? It could be me. 1 second. 1 second, everyone. I think it could be me. 1 second. I am so sorry, everybody. Is the feedback gone? Yep, then it's me. I thought I moved all of my output to my headphones, but there was something leaking. Oh no, it's not me. Brian?
Yo.
They're still, it's gone, right? Is it gone for everyone? Oh, it's back. Let me try this. Brian, are you on mute? Can you put on yourself on mute?
Sure.
Okay, it's definitely on your side, Brian. So I apologize. So let's say the best way to do it is try to point your speaker away from your microphone or change the distance to your microphone, Brian, just in case. So it's on Brian's side. Sorry, everyone. All right. I'll make sure to cut that out when I
don't have a microphone, so unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
Well, let me see.
Just put yourself on mute. Oh, you know what? Log back in because you didn't have a problem before. So the feedback is back. So there you go.
Is that any
It's
better?
off now. Oh, it's better now.
Right.
Perfect.
Had some audio adjustments.
So apparently when Brian, when you shouted,
man, I broke my speakers.
It broke your speaker. And I can hear myself echoing. Are you guys hearing echo? Is it back? And this is a reason. Oh, that's weird. Now there's an echo. Hey, Brad, put yourself on mute. See what happens.
All right, hold on.
Hello, hello. Still an echo. Hello? Okay, no echo. All right. So, Brian, it's definitely your audio. Try logging out and logging back in, and I'll put you back in. All right. Sorry, everyone. Okay, let's jump into the next step here. Boom, boom. Brightness, right? Thanks for that, Aaron. Yeah, let me know right away if there's an audio issue. Sometimes I don't catch it. It's only on your side, guys. Okay, HDR impact. So the TCL 6 series for 2021 is slightly brighter. Not a lot brighter, but it's noticeable. So if you do want that extra oomph, it's there. So let's check out this real quick here. And boom, this is from Mad Max Fury Road. You can see that in the 6 series, it's going to pause at the very end. I noticed this right away. When I watched it, the top part, this entire scene here was brighter than the TCL by about 150 nits. So if it was only a 50 nit difference, it would not have been noticeable. But 150 to 200 nits, yeah. And this is an HDR10, so it's up to the TVs to tone map the way they want to tone map versus Dolby Vision, which tells them exactly how to tone map, right? So for sure, if you watch movies like Mad Max, where you have 4,000 nits available or more, you're going to get that brighter pop from the R646. Now, this is not to say that the R635 is less bright. Both are mini LEDs. And as you notice, see the highlight is the same brightness. So I'm going to go back to the highlight right there. You see that right here? Very close in brightness. It's able to push more brightness everywhere else. And on the TCL, if I try to bring up to match, then everything gets lifted because I wanted to maintain some of those blacks. So that's just something to think about. But a lot of you are asking, wait, is it really worth it? It depends on the content. I only saw this in Mad Max. Hey, bro. Hello?
Hello?
Oh, echo.
Oh my God.
Put yourself on mute, and then we'll alternate.
I'll mess.
All right. So when I'm done, I'll put myself on mute, and then I'll give you your cue. Thanks for being patient with us, everyone. Okay, so what I was saying, Brian, is that the TCL 6 Series R646 has better specular highlights, as you can see here. But not just that, it can hold a larger area, right? Its average picture level is brighter, and they both have mini LEDs. So I think it may be either a new panel or just something that they have in this 2021 that the R635 doesn't have. Now, in a dark room, it may not make a difference. I think this is more than bright enough in a dark room, but in a brighter room, this may make a difference. So I'm gonna play it one more time for those of you who may have missed it. Brian, I know you missed it. So this is Mad Max Fury Road. And right there, as that scene drifts away, you get these bright areas that the R635 just doesn't do it. There's nothing I could do to make it brighter. Now, if I turned on dynamic tone mapping, blah, 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 then everything is off. This is keeping both of them in the most accurate modes, right? We're not cheating using dynamic tone mapping. All of those additional contrast enhancements are off. So obviously you can even make this a lot brighter using that, but then your colors will be gone. So Brian, what are your thoughts on this? And I'd say this is about 150 to 200 nits of difference. What are your thoughts about that level of additional brightness? Does that make a difference?
Yeah, I think that's a good enough nit difference to warrant and to want it. The TCL is not the brightest LED on the planet anyway, so I would definitely want the brighter panel if I could get it. That's quite a big difference with HDR specular highlights.
Moving on to the next amazing scene for you all to enjoy. This one is here we go, viewing angle. I was most surprised by this because I thought it would have been the same panel, just different processing, but check this out. You lose color. So let me tell you how I did this. The way I have my TV stacked, one is stacked on top of the other. I have this long mount, right? So when I move it over, you can then see them both moving. This is about 45 degrees. So it's a more extreme angle, but still, I wanted you to see the change. I was very surprised that the R646 preserved significantly more color than the TCL Roku. And I think this is important for those who are off angle because here, watch it one more time. See, it looks almost identical, but then when you move off angle, you lose color, you have color shifting. And this next scene, you're going to see something similar. I think these two scenes really represent why wide angle viewing technology is important. And I was very impressed that TCL did it without losing color saturation. This one, and I'm going to have two things to talk about in this actual scene, because you'll notice that the face has different skin tones, right? We'll talk about that next. Okay, so let me do that one more time. You see, he loses a lot of that skin color when you go off angle. But for many of you, you deal with it. But that just goes to show that off angle, the R646 definitely improved their wide angle technology, whatever it is. I wish they'd sell it to everybody. It works very well. And their color volume did not suffer. But something that I noticed throughout this is the facial skin tones. Okay, so there are two things to talk about here. First, this is calibrated, right? So let me go to the next slide. All right, see the close-up? Below, this is calibrated, professionally calibrated by Best Buy. And this, out of the box, I did what I could. The D65 white point, as you can see, is totally off. This is very cool. If I made it warmer, it just looks red, but it's missing something. And you can see the white shirt here, very white. Hey, that looks natural, like a white shirt should look. But the reality is, this is what the creator wants you to see. It's more of a less white, right? And a lot of people complain, and I talked to you, Brian, about this. Do I really want this creator's intent, or this is how people should look? I'll be on mute. What do you think, Brian?
Well, that was actually a conversation we had at the shootout where the Samsung in certain scenes was definitely more striking. And you see that there. And talking about people that want accuracy, if you look at that type image, though his face is washed out, I think some people would prefer the more detail in, or I guess the brighter, cleaner image than the more grainy, darker image. And that's what we mean about director's intent. Is a lot of times people are like, well, I don't give a crap what the director intends, which is why Samsung sells so well, as people do see them as a saturated, bright image, and natural is not always the desire. But that's a conflict that many of us had between accuracy and what do you like on screen. The bottom one is definitely more accurate and more filmic, but if you were to walk people in and out of the room, they may prefer the top one.
And Brian, people are asking you to speak louder or closer to the mic. They couldn't hear you. So next time, we'll ask you to speak a little bit closer. And real quick, get a super chat in here. Hey, thank you, TechMed Rainer Richter, for the super chat. I didn't expect this much of a difference in viewing angle. I need some sleep now. Thank you for the show. Hey, thank you for being here, my friend. Have fun in Europe, Germany, wherever you are, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for coming. Always a great fan. I love you guys, you regulars. And really quick, since we're on some questions, Black Friday predictions for the LG C1 77-inch or a 80J 77-inch. Prices are dropping like fries. Okay, my prediction is everything I predicted earlier. I think it'll go lower than what I've predicted. Now, I don't know if Classy is going to lower his predictions any further, but whatever you see in the next 2 weeks, I think Black Friday is going to drop by an additional 100 to 150. But hey, if you want to save an extra 150, great. It's not going to be that much more. But for many of you, that extra 100 is the difference between your spouse leaving you for the weekend or not. Brian, can you tell us what your thoughts about the extra 100 or 150? Do they wait for Black Friday?
Can you guys hear me? Is that better? Yeah. All right. My thoughts on that is yes, if you're constrained financially and the extra couple $100 does matter, I much rather have the panel a few months early than save the couple $100. I think you'll see the C1 drop about $200 more, but after that, LG is selling so many C1s, they really don't have to continue to be as competitive with the A80. So I think you'll see them eventually stop and level out. But I would rather have it an extra 3 months early and pay $200 more just to have it. Are you guys still there? Phone, while you talking? I don't know. Or is this one?
Okay, well, I'm talking now. All right. Sorry about that.
Are we still echoing? Because if I keep it on mute, let me know.
Yes, we're still echoing.
God damn. All right.
Hey, thank you guys for the patience. So I figured you guys would enjoy a larger close-up of the viewing angle issue. So let me take it off angle at an extreme angle real quick. And there we go. Okay. So as you can see, now this is not a deal breaker for many people. So to be fair, you guys saw what it was like before we turned it almost 45 degrees. They were nearly identical. So unless you're really off angle, it's not a big deal. But many of you are thinking, wait a minute, I'm paying the same price anyway. I don't want any compromises. So that's just something to think about, guys. If viewing angle is definitely, you're about 30 to 45 degrees off, you're going to see this loss of saturation and some color shifting for sure. All right, let's move on. Oh, and let's see. Also, 2 points I'm going to address as well. The reason why calibration is one, right? The white points are off. But secondly, there is a setting that if you increase the HDR effect too much, you lose some color depth. And that's something a lot of people don't realize. So we're going to go into that and explain why that is and what settings you can do to make it more like the R635. So that's something to remember. You can make the R646 more like the R635, but you cannot make the R635 more like the R646. And specifically, you cannot make the black levels of the R635 at the same level as the 46, nor can you make the local dimming eliminate blooming like the 46. But you can make the 46 have similar color volume as the 35, but you have to know which settings, and we'll show the settings at the very end. But let's take care of some super chats real quick here. Hey, Cyber GT, thank you for that. Which 5 movies would you use to test out new TVs? Mine would be The Crow. Oh, I gotta try that out. Haven't seen that. Black Levels, excellent. Avatar for specular highlights. Good suggestions. I also don't have that. Monty Python, Life of Brian. Love that. The Holy Shoe for SDR noise. House of Flying Daggers. Oh, that's a good movies altogether. I'll try that for motion. Lord of the Rings or SW Episode 2. I like Season 8. Game of Thrones, we all know, The Long Night? Episode 3 is excellent. I'll throw out my suggestions, and then I'm going to let you, Brian, throw out what your content test is. So as you guys know, I love the Greatest Showman because of color saturation and skin tones, as well as black levels. And I'll show you why it's so good for black levels. You guys could use some of those scenes. Pitch Black, definitely for blooming. You guys saw how bright it is in space, plus star crushing. I didn't use it here because the motion are identical to me, is Lucy. I love that motion where at the very end, you have the cliffs running through. Those are my favorites. And yeah, I think, and of course, Spears and Muscles. How about you, Brian? I'll go on mute now.
Do you guys hear me through the microphone now or no? Try and see if you're unechoed now because I'm using the mic.
Am I echoing? Oh, hey. Did you fix it? Hey, guys, I don't hear the echo. Oh, no, I do hear a little bit of echoing.
All right. Is it any better? Hold on.
That's okay. I'll just go on mute. It's like a CB radio, like we're on a CB radio, so just get closer to the mic.
Okay. My favorite films to check is Pacific Rim, full screen, HDR performance. Love that. Older 4K releases or movies like Pet Sematary, things like that. Dr. Sleep is an amazing film to check to see if there's a lot of blooming, a lot of grays, a lot of blacks. SDR, actually like Ex Machina, to check SDR black bars. That's another, kind of drab, but some color to it. Those are pretty much my favorite films to throw on quick. And another one, which is very tough, is Ready Player One, because it is a very clean image when he's in the, in the game thing. And then it's a very, you know, a very saturated kind of messed up image when he's out of it. So it's if your TV's not of high quality, that movie will kill it.
Agreed. Okay, so this is a great question from Old Man Gamer, or actually a great comment, because we talked about this at length. Okay, if you go to the user forums or the reviews on Best Buy or Amazon, the number one complaint, if it's not the only complaint, is that the R646, the new TCL 2021 Google TV, the software is either unstable or some apps shut down or the TV reboots and so forth. So it's had at least 2 firmware updates since I bought it a couple of weeks ago, and right now for me, it's stable, and I believe it fixed 1 or 2 image quality things, specifically the black levels appear to be a little bit better. Now, to your point, Old Man Gamer, did you return it before the firmware update because you lost patience with them? My response to this comment in general is all the TV makers out of the door have broken firmware. Some TV makers require over a year, and Sony, I'm looking at you, didn't even offer VRR. We're still waiting for that, and that is a firmware update. But then the X90J, well, you know what, Brian? I'm going to let you take over. Tell us about what happened with the X90J. Out of the door, it got trashed. And then what?
So the X90J, to me, was hammered. It was hammered by reviewers, both written and on YouTube. It literally was 100% better within 3 to 4 days of its launch, and has even improved since then. So we have to be very careful with the written review. It's being first isn't exactly the best thing to do anymore. So buying these TVs, reviewing them, sending them back within their return window is not an accurate way to review TVs anymore. And even for the big companies like Digital Trends and those guys, I wonder if that's why you're seeing them get their panels later than everybody. I mean, Digital Trends had the X90 recently. Vincent had it recently. I'm fairly certain it's not just because they can't get them. I think it's because they don't want them initially. They have to wait on it. They have to return those panels. So it's but for you guys that have 15-day return windows, it's very difficult because, especially with TCL, Vizio, and Hisense, if their panels aren't working, they're going right back. So it's a challenge.
And thank you for that super chat, Nicholas Jarrett. Hey guys, just wanted to ask. My wife watches Dr. Phil a lot. Is there a burn-in risk? I'm torn between the 77C1 or the 75X95J. Thanks, guys. I don't think there is a burn-in risk with Dr. Phil, but then if there's a persistent logo where it says Dr. Phil here and it's super bright, but if it's one of those transparent logos, I don't think that's an issue. If it's a super bright Dr. Phil like it would have been back in the 80s, possibly. But on the other side, all the TVs out this year, Sony and LG and Panasonic and Philips, they've done a great job identifying these things and reducing the risk of burn-in many ways, right? So I'm less concerned about Dr. Phil than I would have been before. I would not go to the X95J just because of burn-in, because the drop in performance is significant, but that's my thoughts. What about you, Brian?
Burn-in is still a very real thing. The A80 and the A90 do have more screen retention than the LGs do. I think they do hit a little bit harder. I don't think it's as much a concern. I think you can leave them on. You can watch as long as my thing with burn-in, as long as you're not watching Dr. Phil exclusively and those pixels aren't getting hit the same way, then you're going to be absolutely fine. But the days of leaving your TV on with Nickelodeon all day long, I still don't recommend people buy if you're going to borderline abuse your TV. But for regular people watching and even gaming, I game on my C1 very hard. I game on my A80J, my A9S, and I've had no problems at all with burn-in even a few years later.
Thanks for the super chat, buddy. Another regular buddy 305 love. He wants to pull a Brian. He saw the A90J 83-inch for only $7,600 at one of his local retailers. I showed a pull to Brian. Well, Brian, when should a person go for that 83-inch? I mean, is it something that is worth paying or not skipping a mortgage for? Yes. All right, then that's the answer. So you should have pulled a Brian, buddy love. Look at that. That is it. That's exactly what we're looking at right there. Gotta love it. Okay, let's jump into the most important part that you all have been waiting for. I think this is a make it or break it for the R646. Black bars versus shadow detail. This is the debate. So the way the R646 has been released, I'm hoping that they change their firmware to make it default out of the box shadow detail and not the black bars. But the black bars definitely wowed me. Out of the box, the R646 has amazing black bars, but it destroys the shadow detail. However, if you don't mind working the settings, then yes, we can fix it. And also, if you overfix it, you're going to end up with skin tones that lose some color depth. So here are the important settings to look at. If you are in the market for the R646, you definitely need to look at the 3 settings in brightness, right? Both of these are located in the brightness setting: black level, gamma, and micro contrast. The top 2, black level and gamma, directly affect shadow detail on black bars. The micro contrast affects the skin tone, and it's either off or high. Low is useless. So let's go into the differences right now. So I'll talk you guys through it and put it on a full screen. There we go, and check it out. Boom. Okay, so here we have, this is from The Greatest Showman. There's a lot of shadow detail here, right? Now, the thing with this scene is that, here we go, you have the TCL R635. It looks like it has better shadow detail, but that's because some of the settings out of the box are not so great. So these are my settings in particular. At 49, the blacks are good. At 47, though, everything drops a whole black level. So from the 44 and 47, beware those 2 black level demarcations, right? I found 48 and 49 to be best, but then you could go to gamma and touch it up to change your shadow detail. Going down will give you more shadow detail. Going up makes it a little bit darker for the room. And you have to play with those 2 to see what you like. Now, if I increase the exposure here, you guys will get an idea of how effective playing with just those 2 settings can be. So there we go. All right, I'm going to pause it. There we go, right there. Okay, so we're going to play with it with higher exposure so you can see. At 49, 51, you see that you start to lose too much of the blacks. But at 47, it drops significantly. And at 44, it drops completely. 44 is super black crushing. And then you go to the gamma, see, going down, going up. At some point, you're going to match the R635, right? So you just do it to taste. Those are the only 2 settings you need. I would start with the, oh, here's another one just to show you. This is the micro contrast. So let me stop this real quick for you guys. We talk about it. That micro contrast affects the skin tone depending on whether you go off or high. Her face right now, if you go to off, you're going to get more color. I'll do a comparison A/B. It's not significant, but it was enough for me to go, wait a minute, is the TV losing color? It's because I had it on high. And the reason I had it on high was because I wanted these specular highlights to pop. That's what high does. It makes it pop, but then it raises a little bit of everything here as well. So it will depends on you. I like it high, but for those who want more accurate skin tone, you won't get it. But it's not significantly different. So let me compare the 2 real quick. There we go. Let's see. Is it here? Okay. So right here, this is before. Her face is a little bit brighter here. This is after. There's a bit more color there. But if you put it on high, every little bit, every detail gets a touch brighter. And this is what I've never found from TCL before. TCL never gave you this granular level of settings. This is what Samsung does. This is what Sony does. Well, now TCL is there. Hisense not there yet, but this is why I was so impressed by TCL. So let me put this in full screen mode so you guys could hopefully see it a little bit better. So as you can see, on the left is with the micro contrast on high. On the right, it's off. It's just a touch more color. But for many of you, you want the extra pop from the little details, right? So now, Brian, which one would you choose? Would you want the extra pop that lose a touch of color volume, or would you go for the HDR impact?
It's such a hard. I rather go with a little bit of HDR impact. I think in this scenario. I think I'd rather see a little bit more of that pop. I know specular highlights and scenes like this are more about the jewelry on her shirt versus like an explosion or something, but I'd rather go, I think, with an LED. If I'm going to be LED, I'd rather go with the HDR impact.
Agreed, because the subtle detail, many of you won't notice, but then the pop, remember, we're very sensitive to luminance differences, but we're not as sensitive to color volume, especially when it's this minor. But I still have to show you why it's there. And there are some settings where I have no idea why it's there. So let me run through it one more time from the beginning so you guys can get an idea. So this is playing with the gamma and the black level. Those are your two most important tools to control the black crushing, right? So remember, at 47, everything just goes black, or almost black. And at 44, you've lost all detail. Avoid 44. Go into 47 if you want more black bars, but into 44, it's just not worth it. And for some reason, when I got the TV, it was at 45, 46, like, wow, this is great black bars, but I'm struggling here. And I think 50 is too lifted. 50 is where the TCL R635 is. So you can make the 46 like the 35, but you cannot go the other way. Okay, so this is a great comparison right here. At 49, this is what I prefer. At black level 49, or actually a little bit more, someone want more detail, let's say 40, but 44, you see that? All gone. Not good, right? And you got to go on. 1 second here. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. So
Check to see if the echo's still there, because I
right.
the speakers.
Oh, yeah, no echo on my side. You hear it?
You guys good?
Yeah, that's
All right.
it. All right. And let me see if there's anything. Okay, so let's get this is very important that you know this micro contrast, because this scene is where it makes the difference. So here, where you have a lot of HDR highlights on the face, directly reflecting on the face, you see the TCL R635 doesn't have that option. It is what it is. You cannot increase or decrease that micro contrast. Here, I have it on high, and the difference is like, what the heck, right? And I couldn't figure out why I was losing some of that. I played with the contrast and everything, and then you go to the micro contrast, you go, oh, that's where it's at, right? So if you go with the micro contrast, because it's so bright, turning it off and on, I don't know if you guys can see that, but there is definitely a difference.
I gotta say, your pictures are phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. I'm hoping you guys caught that, right? Because we know luminance. We're sensitive to luminance.
I wish my hair was like that, but Jesus, man, you're on point with the pictures.
And this is another one, also from The Greatest Showman, right? Micro contrast. You notice her dress and the detail. This is amazing, by the way. Going from one to the other really makes a difference in this scene in particular. I actually was surprised. Let me play it one more time.
Wow.
Look at that, right? So this is, let's see, high, off, and then on. Look at that. It pops, right? But not just that. Look at the bedpost. That is where you're getting that sense of HDR impact. Now, is this creator's intent? Who knows? Who cares? Because we have control over that. And so let's compare it. This is the TCL R646 below. You see the difference? Well, first of all, ignore the skin tones. Again, the R635 is calibrated, so it's on its correct white point, and the R646 is not. It is slightly cool. So look at the lighting effects, though, and specifically, rather than look at her face, because you'll be distracted by the color volume, I want you to look at the bedpost. So check out the difference on the bedpost in both the contrast and the lighting effect, right? Oops, right there. There you go. Okay. Okay. Can you see that difference, Brian?
Absolutely. I mean, that's
what we're talking about. It's
much
subtle.
Like, yeah, but much like dynamic contrast and other settings we see even on OLEDs, I think turning all this stuff off to have the most accurate image doesn't, at least in my opinion, doesn't always yield the most accurate. And I think we mentioned this, you and I, before we came on. I am the everyday man. I am watching this like a
Hey,
regular person.
Brian, you're the everyday man. Before you finish that thought, does this segue into what martial art fights is saying? It seems to be the R646 has way too many settings, and it's not clear what they're really doing. Sometimes more settings is not a good thing. So
And
everyday man,
to
what do you think?
martial arts fights, even if you do know about displays, Vizio, Hisense, and TCL have their own verbiage for what these things are. Doesn't You're not sure if that? I know Vizio, their local dimming high is actually has less black control than their low. So for a lot of us, local dimming high would be more local dimming versus less. So to your point, I know the Hisense dual cell was a nightmare for the calibrators. There was 4 pages of settings, and nobody was really clear on what they were doing. But I would say again, for the average person, for somebody like me, and I think a lot of you guys fall into that. My question is, take the slides away, and do you like the image? Even though we're looking at this as the greatest showman, we can take a totally different film and it'll change everything that we're doing on the other side. I know even with the OLEDs, us not locking down brightness to 49, we had the raised blacks. That wasn't universal. It worked on some movies, and other movies, the image was completely black. So, I'm on the side of tell me how you like it when you're watching a film versus how you like it looking at grayscale. And being at the shootout, we watched a lot of them calibrate these TVs, and it's almost like the Matrix. Can you see it encoded, or can you see it natural? And that's what's so interesting about what we're talking about today.
Agreed. I think there are two types of people out there. The plug and play, that's why they buy Apple, and that's why I buy Apple. You don't have time to tweak it. Now, because I do enjoy playing with these TVs, but I also sometimes wonder, I wish out of the box it'd be so easy. And I think that's what the R635 is.
Yep.
For me, even though it was calibrated, even before it was calibrated, I felt it looked so close to my Sony A9G that if I didn't get it
Yeah.
calibrated, it was not cool. When I brought it to warm, it looked very good. So buy the R635 Roku TV if one, Roku. That's all important. If you like Roku, end of story. It is. The TV is so good already that Roku may be the deal breaker, and I think that's fine. Personally, I like Google TV because I want to have a sense of control, right? But for those who don't care, Roku's great. Don't like playing with settings. The R635 doesn't have any settings. It's either like this
It's
or
very
that,
basic.
deal with
Yep.
it, right? Dark or light. And it works though. I'd say
Yeah.
95% of the time, you'll be happy. And the 5% you're not, there's no setting you could do that will help it because you don't have access to the
Yeah.
black levels. And maybe that's it. Maybe it can do what the R646, but Roku stops it from doing it. Maybe it's
Yeah.
not a hardware thing, right? Maybe it's the software. They just don't give you that black level control or the gamma control that the R646 has. However, out of the box, a touch lifted blacks, but the crushing is fixed. Now, one of the early complaints of the R635 is black crushing. Well, I think TCL decided, you know what? Let's just give it lifted blacks. There won't be crushing, but there is blooming. So this is the one thing about the R635 that you cannot fix is the blooming. And that's why I personally will get the R646, Google aside, Roku aside. It's better overall, but you need settings. And I think I shared with you the important settings. Anything else you play with, don't worry about it because it affects color or contrast. But the black bars and the black crushing, I think is a deal breaker for the R646 if you don't get it right. And of course, it has more gaming features. Its VRR goes up to 4K 120. But the quality, I found that the VRR turned off local dimming, so it's not as punchy. And I know it's supposed to have THX gaming. I think it's default HDR THX gaming. I don't think you have to enable it. It appears that it's always on because it looks so similar to my R635 in 4K 60 HDR THX mode. So,
Well, I'd say the THX mode thing. That was a huge
mhm.
thing 10 years ago. Where THX mode. Oh my God, THX receivers, THX. I've really found it. Even the THX modes on these Sonys, I never use them. I don't, and I even found the THX game mode to be nothing special. It really is at this point serious marketing as far as I'm concerned.
And as we get close, no, well, let's start answering questions because I didn't get to all your questions related to the R646. So I'm here, and this is why we're doing the review this way. I don't know what I don't know, which means I don't know what you care about in terms of R646 versus R635. Right now, they're priced the same, so it's not the price. So let's hit it. Hey, thank you, Mr. Campbell. Which is a great option between the X90J or the R646? Hands down, the R646. Even though I haven't seen the X90J, the R646, the way it controls everything in terms of lighting, but I'm very much an HDR lighting guy. I don't like lifted blacks. X90J out of the box will be color accurate compared to the R646. You guys saw what it looks like, so let's see if this bothers you. Does this bother you? Because out of the box, the TCL or the X90J will look more like the calibrated one below. And if you go for the R646, you're going to have to deal with what is likely the white point is going to be off. It's going to be too cool. If that doesn't bother you, then I think that kind of determines you get the R646. What would you recommend to Mr. Campbell?
Well, the challenge with comparing something like the X90 to these displays is a lot of times you're comparing a mid-range Sony to the flagship or to the higher end TCL. And that's even though they're priced similarly, or I think the X90 is more expensive, you're really comparing the lower end X90 to the higher end mini LED. I personally like the X90. It caught a ton of hate. Primarily, it was just too expensive for what it was. It was just a better 900H. But I do like what I see from the R646. I just personally myself have a very difficult time trusting the company 100% just because there's such panel variance between them.
Agreed.
So
And so that's
I'm not a full believer in any of these products just yet, which is why I'm kind of on as a skeptic. It's not because I love the big three, but I've been burned by all three: Vizio, Hisense, and TCL, and primarily due to panel variance. You have Michael Wyckoff in the comments who has absolutely none of the issues that we're talking about as far as blooming. I have other people that couldn't look at it for more than 2 days, and that's panel variance that these companies have to get a handle on.
agreed. And before we move any further, this is so important. I have to hit it again. Best settings for R646. This will make or break many people's decision to return the TV. I don't want you to return a TV that actually is better than it appears out of the box, because
Mm-hmm.
out of the box, I had black crushing issues myself. So skin tones, play with micro contrast or get it calibrated if it's completely off. But for black levels and shadow detail, avoid 44 at all costs. You go to black level 44, you're going to get perfect black bars and it'll be unbearable. At 47, the black bars are better than the TCL R635, but it is a touch lifted, more so than the QN90A. So this is where the Samsung QN90A still is the king. You don't compromise on the shadow detail, even though the black bars are better. For the R646 to match the QN90A, you had to go down to maybe a 47 to a 46. But now I noticed the black crushing. Avoid 51. That one now it's lifted. It's even worse than the R635. So once you choose your black level, play with the gamma between 2.2 and 2.5 to add shadow detail. I think somewhere here, depending on your room brightness, you will find that match for what is an R635 level of shadow detail and performance. And this micro contrast is, you might not know if it's on high or off. It brings out the specular highlights as you saw earlier. So
Yeah.
yeah, I was hoping that this can help people understand what the important settings are, because we don't even know what, how
No.
important are these settings, right?
Well, and guys,
So
like with dynamic contrast and even this micro contrast, a good rule of thumb is if you're watching something that's a bit older, any of the Thing in 4K, a lot of these films, Apocalypse Now, chances are you'll disable that because it'll enhance grain. But and I've always said, if you have the content that can take it, put it on high, let it go wild.
and thank you for that super chat, 5 points low. This is important. Where does the R648 fit in besides it being 8K? So uh, the 8K adds an extra obstacle. Number one, it cannot be as bright as the R646. The 8K is extra pixel density, and for it to even come close, it has to push out more watts, or it has to take in more watts to put out less light. And being energy conscious, TCL cannot make the R648 brighter in 8K unless it goes Sony Z9J, which it won't. So if you want brightness, the R646 will be brighter. 8K, I honestly, it adds so many obstacles. I cannot make a case for the R648. Price aside, I would choose. Now, to be fair, I've never seen the R648 only because I know what to expect and I don't want to be disappointed. So take that with a grain of salt. Not having compared them head to head, and I've done head to heads with 8K before, and they've lost every time. So I've stopped doing it, right? But I would choose the R646 before the R648. The R648 really is an 8K showpiece for TCL, but it's not even their best 8K. The OD0 is. So it's like sticking the R646 with an 8K panel and hoping for the best. And it's not bad. I mean, the early reviews are okay, but the R646 I think is better. What are your experiences comparing the two, Brian?
Well, I mean, the issue, guys, too, is that again, when we get into these brands, the processors are going to be nowhere near what you guys are used to with Samsung and Sony and LG, especially you're seeing with the cognitive processor. So, what's the biggest obstacle for 8K other than the screen? It's upscaling, and these brands do not have the best upscaling. It is a weakness compared to the big three. 8K is that times four. So 8K, you're upscaling everything, and it is an issue. And even with Samsung, it's a bit of an issue. So I would never really, at this point, trust the TCL at 8K, just because it's a large. To me, it was a way for them to jump the line. It's not really offering anything, and that's where I don't trust the large reviewers, simply because there is a ton of marketing, and they have to push 8K because nobody's going to buy a panel because it's 12-bit. Nobody's going to buy a panel for any of these other buzzwords that we love. 8K is very simple. It's double four. And that's it.
And what
that's
a
really
great
why.
Brian, I have to say, what a great segue, because we're talking 8K, and this is about our TV enthusiast community, what's important to them. And 8K is this, well, it's new heights, experience new heights. And this is the lead into what's next. Something exciting is happening in October. And I want to tell you that what led me to this is the reason I'm doing this review this way. I realized that the community, you, all viewers, you're the most important part of my review. It's because I do the review for you. I already know what the TV is. For myself, I'm done. But if it's not useful to you, what's the point of the review, right? But then if I'm doing a review, shouldn't you guys be a part of the review? And so it hit me. The reason why I did the review this way is I spoke recently with a friend who is waiting in the lobby right now, this friend of mine, and we talked. He has his own community. He's a YouTuber. He has his own community. And we talked about what it means to have a community. And he said, "Hey, how do I address the needs of our community?" Because he has audio enthusiasts, I have TV enthusiasts, and we broke it down and we said, you know what? It's three things. Experience. How is the experience interacting with us and with the brand? New. People are bored of the same things. Forget objectivist versus subjectivist, creator's intent versus HDR pop. They just want to try something new. There's nothing wrong with trying something new. It's not projector versus OLED versus LCD. It's all of the above. Why can't I have both, right, Brian? We can, with the conclusion, it's okay. Classy Brian and myself, we have a dedicated TV for gaming because it's okay to be new. There's no one answer. And lastly, and this is the 8K, heights. You could always want to get better. I started off with a TV, CRT, and then plasma, and then LCD, but we constantly are upgrading. So this brings into the segue of what's next. And I would like to introduce our friend Joe Intel. I
Joe,
am
what's up?
working
What's
with Joe. Hey guys, I am working with Joe specifically on the AV Summit. So before Joe starts talking, I have to get out my 5 cents. I'm so excited about this. Joe reached out to me and said, "Hey, I know audio. I want to add video. FOMO, can you bring the TV half of this summit?" And I said, "Only if you give me full control on the TV side, because I know my community so well. I know what they want." And he said, "Done. If you can give that community," and we work together on this, give them a new experience to interact with the brand. Because what is the number one thing you guys complain of? You're not heard. Like you don't, like Sony, right? The VRR issue, you guys were in the dark for the longest time. And it wasn't until I finally cornered one of the Sony reps, and he sat down. And he gave me this long explanation. I go, that's all we wanted, and that was it. It's this experience of interaction that I think I can enable and connect. Joe has been doing this for the audio community. We've only started doing this for the TV community. I didn't realize that Joe is on a first name basis with the guys at Monoprice, Monolith, Cali, KLH. I mean, it goes on and on. I know, Joe, don't pretend. And I have yet to meet anyone from the brands until the shootout. At the shootout, Hisense, Sony, they get, hey, let us know. What does your people want? I go, wait, you really want to know? And that made such a big difference for me, because I wait a minute, we can make a difference. Whatever you guys are complaining about, VRR, it doesn't matter. They have a platform to listen to us, and it's not just YouTube. It is just a community that's online. So I want to explain how we're going to set up the AV Summit so that you guys can connect with us and the brands directly. That's the experience. The new is you want to try something new. You want to go from soundbar to 5.1 home theater, or home theater back to soundbar. Sony has some amazing technology. Joe has some amazing technology that I never even heard of, and it's super expensive. That got me excited. And then Heights, if you have the money, how do we elevate that experience? So Joe,
Oh man.
what are you up to, man?
Oh man, you get me hyped up. That's all I know.
What's up, Joe?
I'm
What's
so
up?
excited to be a part of this, because, and just to let everyone know, look, before Joe says anything further, we have a platinum sponsor, and this sponsor means that they are responsible for the quality of the TV, and they're going to listen, because I told them, look, if you guys are a platinum sponsor, I'm going to hold you guys accountable. Joe, who is our platinum sponsor for the audio video show?
We got
AV show.
Hisense.
Hisense.
Oh yeah.
Yay,
Yeah.
Hisense. Yes. Thank you, Hisense, for being the platinum sponsor. They are the sponsor, but I told them, hey, just because you're a sponsor doesn't mean we're going to give you a pass. As you guys have seen, this year I selected the TCL as my editor's choice. It was the U7G/U8G, but TCL has pushed it out. But Hisense is talking and say, wait, what do we need to get better? And that's what we need to have, is this discussion.
Absolutely.
So Joe, what is your vision for this? And I know I have my vision, but why don't you tell us, what are you thinking? What's happening at the AV Summit?
Man, well, first of all, you're always so prepared, man. It like gets me stressed out. I'm all like nervous being on here, even though I'm about to do my other podcast right about like in 20 minutes or so. But yeah, I'm more like just relax and freestyle. You're all ready. Throw me off a little bit. Look, all I know is, I don't know that much about TVs, but they go together, right? TVs, the video and audio experience, they definitely go together. I'm more of a projector guy, so I'm excited about the ultra short throw projectors, things like that. Yeah, there's a lot of movement in that space. And I think when you combine the two, audio and video, that's when you get the experience, right? People are always saying, well, it's all about this, it's all about that. Well, how about both of them? How about have a great experience with a nice image, accurate image, and then also accurate speakers? They all go together. But as far as the event, the main goal, number one goal, is to have fun.
Yep.
When I was watching the TV shootout, you know what my favorite part was?
What was
Watching
your
you guys
favorite
mess around.
I know, that was everyone's favorite
It
part.
wasn't the after party live stream. That one didn't get in.
Well, I didn't get to see that, but I heard about it though. So people are like, hey, did you see? Like, out of all the stuff that happened, did you see what happened afterwards, right? So to me, that's the exciting part, is getting people together, having a good time, and that's what we do. That's what we specialize in. I see Techno Dad right here.
Hey, Chana. Oh, hey, you know what? Before I forget, because I know you're going to leave, this is what excited me, because when we say new experiences, binaural demos. So I want to explain what this is, because this is what got me excited. You know how you guys know that I am real excited about the Sony HTA9. That is the 4-speaker system that's completely DSP, 12 phantom speakers, integrates with the Sony TV. And I wanted to share that review with you guys, but it's not the same with just plain audio. And I have a pair of binaural microphones from Spatial, what is that?
Sonic Presence.
Sonic Presence, there you go. Sonic Presence, and amazing. I can sense the spatial cues. So this is what bought me into the home theater aspect is how can you feel Auro 3D? How is it different than DTS or Atmos or the Sony spatial audio? I think the binaural recordings will do it. So I'm going to play with that, and then we're going to talk about it at the summit, because this is what we're talking about, right? Experiencing new heights, experience new. It doesn't have to be more expensive, because a lot of you are going to spend 2 grand on a kit, but you got to connect wires. Some of you just want it plug and play. I think that the HDA9 will be plug and play, but what's a binaural sample to get you excited? Because
Yeah.
everyone was different. We know that. But I think binaural demos will be a game changer as well for me.
Well, if anything, they're fun. So earlier today, you were kind of showing the different aspects of the TV, and you said it in one part where you're like, I exaggerated this part a little just to give you an idea, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're really trying to do is give you an idea. You're not. You also said this is not exactly what it looked like. This is what it. I'm trying to show you something, and so we are trying to show you something. That's the whole idea.
Agreed. So just to give you guys a heads up, what do you expect when you get there? Because one of the things, wait, this is all talk. So this is what I'm working with Joe on to make sure it works for you guys. When you guys get there, first of all, the most important part is the community, us, right? Right away, you'll see where are the hot conversations happening. Is it in home theater, audio, TVs? You could jump in right away and start chatting with people you know, make new friends, or the brands, because the brands will see where all the talk is happening. They're going to jump in and talk and respond to your questions. Oftentimes, it's questions that they didn't know was important to you, because I know the Sony engineer pulled me aside and said, "Hey, how important exactly is VRR for a TV?" And I said, "Well, look, if it's PC gaming, it is. If it's PS5, maybe it's not. The reality is people are buying your TVs because of the movie quality. If you do gaming, do it right, because otherwise the gamers will just trash you." And he goes, "That's what we thought." But that's the kind of conversation I didn't realize we could have with the brands once we start bringing them on that common platform. And it allows you guys to connect with them in that way. So I'm really excited about just getting our community to the brands, because I always play as the in between, right, Brian? I know Brian calls Value Electronics and Robert on behalf of a lot of the viewers as well. And it's like, wait, why can't we all get together into that platform where the brands know where to go a few times a year to get a feel for what you guys want in home theater or home entertainment? Is that your vision as well? Or do you have even more in mind that I'm missing, Joe?
Well, I was having a meeting with a big audio company this morning, and they're like, you know what? We're gonna, a lot of these companies are doing their own thing now. They're starting to understand like they need to make content, and I agree. I think that they should, get themselves out there and promote their own products and things like that. But the one thing that a lot of times they don't have is they don't have our reach when it comes to our audience and our community, right? Because if you're a brand, you're only promoting your brand. And what are you going to say about your brand? Only good things.
Right.
So they're not really interested in speaking directly with consumers. They're only talking amongst themselves with, dealers and distributors and, B2B, business to business, right? Not business to consumer. And the problem is what they need to understand is at the end of the day, the consumer is the one who's going to buy from those people. So they really do need to listen. They think that it's just, of course they're going to sell to a dealer who's going to buy, 500 units, whereas you might buy one,
You know,
right?
Joe,
So, but
I'm going to stop you right there only because you brought something, it hit me, and this is important to Brian and I. Our community respects our opinion because we always talk about the use case. Like, get OLED for this, but don't get it for this. For some reason, the brands don't know that use case. And one of the things that I told Hisense and the other makers that, look, if you sponsor or you exhibit or whatever, one thing is going to be certain: every product you put out there, I'm going to make sure there's a use case. I don't want you throwing stuff out there with a bunch of hyperbole, right? Like, oh, this is the best speaker ever. Well, actually, no, it isn't. What is its use case? Who will benefit most? Blah, blah, blah. Because at the end, if everyone says they have the best TV, the best speaker, then the consumer is still confused. So the one thing I think that we separate our show from other shows is I'm going to make sure every product or exhibitor that has on display, there is a use case there that they can tell me and that I can tell everyone else, because that's why you're here, is to find some direction. If you've ever been to CES, it's like everything is great, but then nothing works. It's like, wait, it didn't work for me. I want to avoid that with this platform. Is that something that you think is, because I this is the only platform I'm working on. I've never been on any other shows. Is this unique to our show, you think?
I don't know. I mean, we're always trying to do something different. The real cool thing about what we're doing is, it's all about the community. And they need to understand that they're really powerful. We have this technology called the internet, and what we're doing right now, how we're looking at the comments as we speak. Like they're part of this, right? Without them, it would just be us three, and that's like typical TV. It's a one-way conversation.
Absolutely.
But people need to understand, no, it's everybody should be listening to everybody. And that's brands too. Brands should be listening to consumers. So I want this to be an event where you have all the brands that you want to see. I want you to be able to talk to all those people and ask them specific questions. And I'm hoping that they're going to listen. So we're going to get all these people together, all in one, not a virtual room, but all one site, AV Summit, and let's see what happens. It's a 5-day event, and so I think you'll have an opportunity to talk to different brands, talk to each other. To me, actually, that's the most fun is you see all these people starting to talk to each other, and they build relationships beyond the actual event. Next time you see them, all of them are here. They're all joking with each other. They have their own jokes, and so that's what it's all about.
And I want people to come there to rant about their TV or audio experience. Like, man, this sucks. Because the more we know about what sucks, the more, because I might not have the product you have that sucks, right? And we can let the brand know. And I think Capono's comment is so poignant. And it's something that I'm going to ask Brian to address is, I thought FOMO and Brian do this to help people get the very best for their money and be able to spend on that. But that's the thing. What is the very best for you? I don't want you to get the best bang for the buck, but it ends up you're in a bright room and you hate the TV, but it's the best bang for the buck. It has to fit your use case. And sometimes it doesn't fit your use case. You might save money and drop down a level, or you might have to spend a little bit more and go up a level. What is very best to you, Brian?
Well, what excites me about what you guys are doing, and I'm happy to have Joe on here because I was just down the YouTube rabbit hole looking for a new subwoofer. I watched a ton of Joe's videos. I watched a ton of Shane's, Techno Dad, Youth Man. So me being the TV guy and dabbling in surrounds, I think audio has quadrupled the levels that TVs do. TV has two or three, top of the line, then they quickly go down. Speakers, receivers, processors, having somebody like Joe on there to help clarify what is enthusiasts, because that's the difference between $500 and $10,000. So the joke is at Value Electronics, when I'm shooting a video of a $10,000 TV, I'm leaning on a $20,000 speaker. So to have somebody like Joe be able to say, hey, you know what? As an enthusiast with that ear, it's not worth the money. I watched a lot of reviews on a certain subwoofer. I could barely hear it. And now I have this monster tubular SVC beast. I have two of those, and it's amazing. But I watched you. It would have been great to talk to you. I talked to Techno Dad, I talked to Shane. We only hear you guys say, hey, for you and the size room you have, I think, if the audio thing is also, there is some snobbery there. And
Oh my gosh.
But to have somebody like you there who's not afraid to say, like, yeah, I'm open to talk. I think that hasn't really, I know Audioholics has their live stream and they have a lot of that, but I think it's very hard to get on there and talk to them. To have somebody who's as personable as you, I think is a great advantage.
Oh, thank you for that. And you know what? You can always call me. So that's what we want for this event too is, there's one thing, watching videos is cool, right? It gives you an idea. We're really putting as much as we can into these reviews to give people, I think what you guys are talking about, which is, helping people make good purchasing decisions for themselves. It's not like I'm not telling you, I'm giving you the information so you can make a good decision.
And Joe,
so, yeah.
Real quick, I hate disrupting you, but
No,
what
you're
you
good.
just said is right what Roberto Boatti said. This is exactly what we're talking about, helping make a decision. He said that's why he reached out to FOMO and my team, our community. He purchased the Q90 in Australia because we love it. But then where he lives, they don't use the VA panel. They use the IPS panel. And this is so upsetting. So the brand in some regions are giving better TVs, but the exact same model in Australia or elsewhere is a drop down. I didn't know that. Brian didn't know that, but Roberto lives in Australia. He's like, what the heck? And then he confirmed, and it's like IPS, baby, 55-inch. I'm like, what? And the thing is, on the platform, immediately we can get it out there and then get it to the brand. Go, look, yo, Samsung, come on now. You can't be charging the same, at least charge less. But how quickly can we get the word out when these things happen? And I go back to that Sony VRR nightmare where I put out the video.
Yeah,
In no time, right?
Yeah.
Rob at Sony, his weekend was ruined, but that's his job, right? He called me, he goes, hey man, hey, it was a mistake, it was a typo, but they had to work on it. And I'm hoping Samsung sees this as at least puts out a disclosure so that consumers know they're buying a lesser TV that I'm reviewing and loving, and they're taking advantage of my love for the VA panel and getting a crappy ADS panel in Australia. I mean, Brian, are you hearing that from your viewers as well?
I do, absolutely, but I think also kind of going back to Joe, it's when you're watching somebody for a few years. I watched Joe for a long time. I've watched a lot of the different reviewers. If I see that he's down to earth, he's got kids, he lives similar to me, he's going to be more relatable. If I watch somebody who is only elite, high end, then I'm like, okay, it's not that you can't afford them, but I get to know the person. And if he interacts with the community, like I know Joe does, I've jumped in his videos before, I'm more apt to not only trust him, but relate to him and know that, hey, he likes the high end, but he also, for a guy who's doing this. And that's why we're so good at recommending TVs, but we're only dealing with 15 to 20 models a year, where speakers like this subwoofer behind me, it's a few years old, and to be able to revisit your older content and be able to speak with it with specificity, I think is really important.
Man, you guys are like, like if you jump into like a basketball game and they're all passing super fast, you guys are busting out the assists. I'm like,
okay,
jeez,
I don't want to.
Thank you.
Trying to give you love, baby.
This is so important because I don't want MacGyver to feel like we're attacking ADS, because we talked about this as well, right? You want to protect your purchase and confirmation bias and all that. But on the other hand, MacGyver feels that there's nothing wrong with the IPS panel. Am I overstating that it's not a VA panel? I make it feel like something is wrong, but nothing is wrong, especially with the mini LED. So we may disagree. And MacGyver, I completely respect your opinion. But for me, you guys know how hard up I am for black bars, deep blacks, and blooming control.
Contrast ratio.
Contrast, IPS or ADS cannot do that. But that's me. On your content, if you can't tell the difference, who am I to say? And this is what tech therapy is for. Joe, have you been on Brian's channel? He's there to tell MacGyver, dude, you're okay. Don't return your panel. You'll love it, right? So,
well, I mean,
what would you tell MacGyver?
Well, I mean, and this is for Joe too, because obviously speakers, I mean, the sensitivity level there is very high. If something's brighter or is warmer, or people love certain brands, they want their whole timber match to go. With MacGyver, and even with those of you that were a little bit hurt with the TCL, is, you'll never hear us attack anything. We just may not prefer it. But I know for Joe and a lot of the audio guys, that's a much deeper pool to swim in. But MacGyver, truthfully, if you feel and you like what you see, that is really all that matters, which is why we never say something is trash. IPS panels are monitors. They're fast. They're reliable. They're better with screen uniformity. They have wider viewing angles. There are advantages to them. We just feel, a lot of us, with the wider color gamuts and HDR and very large screens, they struggle. The Samsung QN85 is gorgeous for some reason. I have no idea why. It's an IPS panel. The QNET looks good. So you don't have to get defensive, my friend. I mean, it's just we all have different tastes. They do have and they are more reasonable in price. But I think getting into TVs, when you go back into the audio side, that's going to be something that I'm going to want to watch. You go through, my man, and see how you handle those, Joe.
Yeah, what's funny is like I probably have like the worst set of TVs. Like I'm gonna lose all my video credibility here, but that's what I watch you guys for. You know what I mean? So like, I have some Vizio OLED that I just use like once in a while in the bedroom.
And Joe, for those that don't know, can I talk about that?
Yeah.
The Vizio OLED was my OLED, and I told Joe the only reason I am selling you this visual OLED is because it comes with an extended warranty. Otherwise, I would not sell it to you because I don't want
Does
you
it
coming
turn
back
on?
yelling.
It turns on. It turns on. So that's and you know why the only reason I bought it was because I wanted to try it as a monitor and I didn't care about burn-in, and I was like, whatever happens. I just
You're
want
like,
to
let's
see what
if
happens.
It can burn in.
Yeah, it's just like, whatever happens. So I have that. I have some old TV, and then I have projectors. I have a BenQ V7050i, the ultra short throw, which I really like a lot, and then I have a overhead projector in the dedicated theater. So yeah.
Hey, Joe,
Yeah.
I'm going to jump and join you in your podcast in 5
Yeah.
minutes. But before you leave,
Yeah.
I want you to address this comment because
Okay.
Capono, this is important because Brian and I deal with this all the time. Once you watch FOMO, not just me, Brandon, any of the TV reviewers enough, we could say something that make you dislike your panel because we put out real comparisons. Oh, I didn't see that. And then you put out, oh my God, now I see it. I cannot unsee it, right?
Yeah.
But that's TVs. Literally, you cannot unsee it. Brian and I deal with it. Look, don't upgrade, hold on to it. In 5 years when you upgrade, it'll be amazing. It's okay.
Yeah.
Do you have that similar sense of I can't unsee it in audio? I mean, I can't unhear it? Is that a complaint? Because I get that a lot. Techno Dad, and I know Brian does, and Brad, oh man, you screwed it up. I love this TV. Now I hate it. Is there
Joe,
something like that?
Before
Yeah.
Joe goes, I'll tell you, I'm going through this now because I have the Denon 6700H. And I'm talking to Shane and Techno Dad. I'm running 11.2
Okay.
channels in a small. Now they want me to buy processors that are $20,000, and I'm like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So, but once your mind gets going, now I needed better subs, and I know better, and I'm still leaning towards doing that, and I know the differences can be incremental. Same with TVs.
Yeah.
I would just say though, for those in the comments, do not go in the comments or on videos looking for affirmation. That's gonna hurt. So if you bought the TV you love, I always say stop watching us for a little bit. It could be the same way with audio.
You know what I think it is? It's that there's certain things that are just a lot better. There's like with OLED, the black level, when I got it, I'm like, oh, okay, I understand now that's just off. When the lights are off, there's nothing that I see there.
Yep.
I didn't know that before. I didn't know, like my brain didn't understand that. But now that I understand that, now I can look at other things like, oh, that doesn't do that. So that's kind of one of the issues. And with audio, I would say an example would be I like Dirac as the room correction software because it does a great job of really making the sound just very cohesive. And I found that other ones don't necessarily do that. And so now I have to have that, which is an issue. Now that's why you get into that, like, oh, I need this more expensive one because I do like AURO. So here's AURO3D, and then I also like Dirac, but the thing that has both of them is $4,000. Like, oh, So, but could I be happy with the other ones? Yeah, I could if I didn't know about this other stuff.
Hey, Joel, I'm going to put the link in the live stream. I'm going to jump off on and join you at. So I linked it below. That's correct, right? You're the Daily Hi-Fi. So guys, you can come on that stream and ask about TVs. If I didn't get to your questions, I apologize because, we're so excited about doing this, but I also don't want to keep Joe too long. And hey, we want to talk audio. Brian, you want to go in there and ask a question about subwoofers? We need a lot
Everybody's
of
free to
questions.
join. Jump in. I'll give you a link. I'm gonna give you guys a link right now.
I just bought mine. I'm not going down the rabbit hole.
Oh, come on. You don't know what was it? You can't unhear it. Let's hear it.
I got 2 of them now. I'm good. But thanks a lot for having me on, guys.
Hey, thanks a lot, Brian.
Thank you.
So good luck with everything, brother.
Thank
Good talking
you.
to you.
Sounds like,
right.
oh, happy birthday. Enjoy your birthday
Oh, happy
celebration.
birthday.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, right. So, yep, I'm going to head out now. Thank you, everyone. And of course, I'm going to download this, cut it up, edit it, make sure I remove all the bad echoes and all that terrible stuff, and then upload it back with your questions that I may have missed and make sure that it's clean. And we'll see what happens if you like this better. Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stop the FOMO. And thank you, Brian and Joe. Bye, everybody.